troublesome employees. Troublesome employees aren't an if, they're a when. And they beg the question, what? What do we do with them? Do we try to work with them? Do we take their desk, shove it into a closet, and hope that the bad apple doesn't spoil the bunch? Ryan, The Office. What do we do? Well, today, I'm going to talk about turnover. I'm going to talk about the true cost of turnover, and I'm going to convince you that termination is the absolute worst case nuclear option to solving employee troublesome, to solving.
Class is now in session.
All right, there's the bell. Grab your seats. Let's get into the good, the reason why we're all here today. Now, I'm really excited because I've got not one, but two special guests. I've got Ron Burgundy and Bear on all the road trips. So I've seen all 50 states. That's kind of part of my personality. If you've ever met me, I force that knowledge into your brain before I even introduce myself sometimes. And of the 50 states, Bear here has been to more states than my wife. Looking to change that in 2024. Let's just roll into the... So I have been termed more than one time. Thrice times, in fact. And I could share you the story about how I got terminated for having red pants. Actually, they were salmon pants, Brad.
The names and identifying details have been changed to protect the privacy of individuals.
You may think I'm a walking disaster. You wouldn't be wrong. Maybe I'm just a circle. And you can't force a circle to fit into a square. Things are going to go wrong. And either that circle is going to get fired, or they're going to get burnt out and they're going to quit. Thanks, Winston. He agrees. We got to make sure, first of all, managers, hirers, entrepreneurs, recruiters, look, you're trying to fill a position, take your time and pick the right person. I was coaching soccer, and one of my soccer kids' dads owns a ton of car washes. And I got him on the phone, and we were talking a little bit, and he gave me some really interesting advice that I really, really liked, because it wasn't, there's something wrong with this employee. It's, what am I doing wrong for this turnover to happen? And the only time he ever has to fire employees is one of two reasons. One, hired bad people. Two, didn't train the employee well enough. What I love about that is it takes responsibility for the outcomes of the employees on the manager, on the owner, right? But two, it means that they put a higher focus on training the employee once they're hired, but also taking their time in hiring the right people. And if we do these things, we shouldn't have high turnover rates. Right? If we have a great workplace where people want to work, they shouldn't want to quit. If we spend our time putting the right people in the right jobs and we train them properly, they should never have performance issues, right? That's where I'm going to start this episode is, what are our hiring standards? What does our office culture look like? What are the jobs we're filling and the personality types that are going to fit this job well? Because that is going to pay off significantly in the long run. Why is it a bad idea to fire employees? Why is it the worst idea to fire employees? Let's talk about the cost. Morale. Now you think, a lot of people just overlook morale, but morale plays a big part in productivity and satisfaction and confidence and retention. Example, join me. It was December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas. Where was I? In the workplace. I showed up to work that morning and I noticed Tim's not here today. He must be running late. Well, where's Ashley? Blake's not here? Hold up. Am I getting pranked? Are we not supposed to be in office today? Oh, yeah, well, other people are here. It must be a traffic thing. Noon rolls around. They still aren't there. Do you know why they weren't there, student? Cause not one, not two, but 3 employees got fired 2 days before Christmas. This was every person that was in the office that day, we didn't say a word to each other. Didn't look at each other. We're scared to look at the wall the wrong way, else they report us back to the owner and we'd get fired. Everybody was walking on eggshells. I know I did. I'm sure most of us went home and shooting out applications on Christmas Eve like none other, right? Because who knew if we were going to keep our job? They fired 3 people on Christmas. All right, what's the point of the episode? Well, the point is, For your managers, your hirers, your entrepreneurs, firing is the last case scenario. Employee morale, office culture, customer perception. Let's talk about the financial data. How much does it cost for turnover? Well, most people will say it varies, but there is a literal number. There's an exact number that is an average, but a predictable average. And that number is 150%. Okay. Now I went on to go find a source to go support my theory. So you're like, oh no, it's not just pulling it out of his butt. I found the number I'm looking for in the Society of Human Resources Management in a peer-reviewed article, that's SHRM, by the way, that said my number, and that number was 150%. All right. That means your salary plus half of your salary is what it costs to replace this person. Doesn't matter if you're hourly, if you're salary. I know my skeptics out there are like, Well, skeptics, let's talk about it. What are the costs for employees? Well, one, let's talk about when you fire an employee, you might have a severance package. Severance package is 1 to 3, maybe even 6+ months worth of pay that helps that employee transition to their new profession. Some companies don't have this. A lot of companies do. From the company perspective, this is me paying them to not work here at all. So free money. Okay. Next, we talk about the actual process of hiring someone. Well, first you got to type out a job. You got to post it. Posting it isn't free. At least it's not free in the places where you want to post it. And then you've got to spend the time to read over all the applications, look over all the resumes. You've got to interview if they show up to the interview. And then you've got to go, maybe you've got a second round of interview. Maybe you've got to look at the little exam questions that you give them. Then you've got to talk about it with other managers, right? Lot of time from a highly paid employee. Now, you're moving on. What happens after you're hired? Well, you got to train. So training could take a week. It could take a month. It could take 3 months. There are some training programs that are 24 months. Who are the people that are training? Well, here's a rule of thumb, people. Who do you want doing your training? Do you want your worst employee training new employees? Of course not. You want your new employees to develop good habits, and they develop good habits from learning good stuff. And who do they learn that from? Good employees. And what are good employees paid? Well, they should be paid the best in the company. So now you've got high paid employees losing productivity. We call that opportunity cost. We'll come back to that in a minute. You've got these high paid employees that are spending their valuable time just training the noob, right? That's more cost. Let's go back to opportunity cost. So opportunity cost is me, I perform at 100%. I'm no longer here, 0%. We get a new employee and it'll take 1 to 3 months to hire this employee. After that, we've got 1 to 3 months of training that employee. And now you're like, all right, cool, we're back. Wrong. They're also not as proficient as I was. The day that they get out of training does not mean that they're as good as I used to be at this job. So it may take a month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. It may take 2 years if they ever get to the point where they're as proficient and productive as I was. All that time where this performance, the person doing this performance is gone, this area that it takes for the new employee to perform as well, this is our opportunity cost. This is all the money you would have made if that employee was still here, but now they're not, and you've lost out on all that change, and that money adds up. Now, if the point wasn't hammered home yet, the final thing I'm going to give you is a statistic. On average, new employees require 15 to 20% higher salaries right off the bat. Now, the reason is because when you have an employee, you're supposed to be giving them raises that keep up with inflation and keep up with the industry, but managers are cheap and they don't. To be fair, it's not because they're always cheap. The employees are satisfied with the pay they have. I'm not going to just throw extra money when they're already satisfied with their pay. The reality is they're getting underpaid compared to the industry average, and they're taking advantage of loyalty. So you can see how all these costs add up. 150%, I would argue, is a low estimate. While I'm talking about termination a lot, this also applies to employees who quit. They could quit for any reason. They could quit because they're a circle and this is a job for a square. They could quit because they're not getting paid enough. They could quit because they're not motivated. They could quit because the person they work for sucks. I mean, there's a million different reasons, and that 150% does not discriminate on termination or voluntary quitting, right? It still affects both situations. What do you do? In short, very quickly, here's the solution, okay? If you're thinking about firing in your top 3 options of dealing with a difficult employee, you're probably not a leader. You're probably just a boss. People don't follow bosses, they follow leaders. How do you be a leader? Well, I say this in my intro to business class. What is a good manager? A good manager, a good leader, they know their employees. They know their team. Just like a football coach, you know your strengths, you know their weaknesses, you know where to position them on the field, in the office for optimal performance. You know how they interact with the team. You know what their standard is. So when they come in and they're in a slump, you can recognize that. Are they having a bad day? Did something happen at home? Are they burning out? Do we need to change something about the workplace so that they're not burnt out anymore, right? Or is it just a bad day? Well, I don't know. Let's figure it out. We got to know. We got to know what motivates them. See, these are all things that leaders do. And instead of firing someone and incurring the cost of it, it's a lot cheaper to just learn about your employees. Now, of course, taking the time and making the effort and putting forth the energy to getting to know all of your employees, that's time consuming. It takes a lot. It's hard. It takes a lot of effort. But we shouldn't be leaders when somebody's walking out the door. We should be leaders from day one. And if you're being a leader from day one and you're learning about your employees and staff every single day, then you shouldn't have to put all that effort forth at the end. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say termination, quitting, it's preventable. It's preventable by being a good leader. But also, if you got to cough up 10%, 20% raise, as opposed to the 150% it's going to cost to replace them altogether, yeah, I'd probably go with the raise. Well, there's the bell. It looks like I kept you over class. Listen, if I need to write you a note to excuse you for being tardy to your next class, you let me know. I got you. Otherwise, let's talk about our takeaways real quick. 1, firing employees is too expensive for it to be our first option. 2, people don't want to work for bosses. They want to work for leaders. We need to learn the strengths, the weaknesses, the fears, the insecurities, and the motivators of our team. And if you're the person who says, my team's too big for me to know all of them that intimately, well, you already said it. Your team's too big. Hey, listen, thank you so much for listening today. I really appreciate it. I appreciate every individual that takes the time out of their day. You could be spending your time doing something else. Listen to other people, listen to music, sitting in silence. Sometimes that's better. If you'd like to support, I really appreciate your support. I don't want money. And today I'm not even asking for likes or for follows or anything like that. I'm actually asking today for something specific. I'm asking for reviews. Reviews go a long way. They help with the algorithm. They help expose it to other people. And they provide an opportunity for feedback. And through feedback, I can enhance my podcast and become better. So I'm not asking for blind 5-star reviews. I can pay for those. I'm not worried about that. I'm looking for honest, legit feedback from you. Otherwise, thanks for listening. I'm Coach Dr. D. Class dismissed.